If you've ever been the family punchline, hit that like button and subscribe right now. You're not going to want to miss what happened next. My name is Sarah Chin, and 3 years ago I got married without telling my parents. Not because I forgot to send an invitation. Because they'd spent 28 years making it crystal clear I didn't matter enough to include in their lives. So I returned the favor on the most important day of mine. Let me take you back to where this really started. I grew up in Westchester, New York, in a house that looked perfect from the outside. My father, Richard Chin, was a moderately successful insurance broker. My mother, Patricia, was a real estate agent who specialized in luxury condos. Together they made maybe $300,000 a year. Enough to live comfortably, enough to put on appearances, enough to spoil my older sister Madison absolutely rotten. Madison was the golden child. 3 years older than me, blonde highlights that cost $400 every 6 weeks, a closet full of designer bags, a brand new Audi for her 16th birthday. She was pretty, popular, and according to my parents, destined for greatness. She was going to marry rich, join the country club, make them proud. Me. I was the backup plan. The smart one. The one who could get scholarships so they wouldn't have to pay for college. The one who should be grateful for whatever scraps of attention came my way. When I was 14, I taught myself to code. I'd spend hours in my room, laptop balanced on my knees, learning Python, JavaScript, SQL. My parents thought I was doing homework. Madison thought I was being a loser. Nobody asked what I was actually building. At 16, I created my first app, a scheduling tool for small businesses. It wasn't revolutionary, but it worked. I sold it for $12,000 to a local startup. I didn't tell anyone. I opened a bank account my parents didn't know about and kept going. The pattern was set early. Family dinners where Madison talked about her social life for an hour while I sat silently. Christmases where she got a diamond necklace and I got a $50 Target gift card. My high school graduation where they left early because Madison had a party to attend. Sarah understands, Mom would say. She's not as social as Madison. She doesn't need all the attention. What I understood was that I was convenient when they needed something. A babysitter, a tutor for Madison's math homework, someone to blame when things went wrong. But I was invisible when it came to celebrations, support, or love. I got into MIT on a full scholarship. My parents' response? Well, at least we won't have to pay for it. They spent my graduation party talking about Madison's new boyfriend, whose father owned a chain of car dealerships. At MIT, everything changed. I met people who actually cared about ideas, innovation, building things that mattered. I met Professor Sarah Williams, who became my mentor. I met David Park, who would become my business partner. And I met James, who would become my husband. I spent my college years building not just skills but a company. David and I started TechFlow Solutions in our junior year, an AI-powered project management platform designed for creative agencies. We worked out of my dorm room, then a tiny co-working space, then a real office. We got our first major client my senior year, a boutique advertising firm in Boston that paid us $50,000 for a custom solution. Then another client. Then another. By the time I graduated, TechFlow was pulling in $400,000 in annual revenue. My parents came to my MIT graduation. They spent the entire ceremony on their phones. Madison didn't come at all. She had a spa weekend planned. At dinner afterward, Dad asked what I was going to do now. I'm running my company full-time, I said. Mom laughed. That's cute, honey. But when are you going to get a real job? You can't play with computers forever. I was 22 years old and my company was valued at $2.3 million. I said nothing. That was my strategy. Silence. I stopped trying to prove myself to them. I stopped seeking their approval. I built my empire quietly, deliberately, while they assumed I was struggling. Over the next 6 years, TechFlow exploded. We landed contracts with major creative agencies across the country. We expanded into enterprise solutions. We hired 60 employees. We opened offices in Boston, New York, and San Francisco. By the time I was 26, TechFlow was valued at $47 million. I personally held 62% equity. My net worth was just over $29 million. I owned a penthouse in Brooklyn, a house in the Berkshires, and a diversified investment portfolio that included real estate and tech stocks. I drove a Tesla, but an older model. I dressed well, but not flashy. I lived comfortably, but I didn't advertise my wealth. My parents still thought I was some kind of freelance computer person making maybe $60,000 a year. Every few months, Mom would call with helpful suggestions. Have you thought about getting your real estate license? I could help you get started. Madison's husband knows someone at his firm. Maybe they'd hire you for their IT department. You really should think about your future, Sarah. You're not getting any younger. I would say, thanks, I'll think about it, and hang up. Madison got married when I was 25. It was a $150,000 wedding that my parents paid for. 250 guests, designer dress, destination bachelorette party in Cabo. I was invited technically. I was even asked to be a bridesmaid. The catch. I had to pay for my own $800 bridesmaid dress, my own flight, my own hotel, and chip in $200 for Madison's bachelorette trip. Oh, and I wasn't allowed to bring a +1 because we're trying to keep it intimate. James and I had been dating for 2 years at that point. He'd never met my family. I'd told him everything, how they treated me, how they dismissed me, how they'd always favored Madison. He'd met my chosen family instead. Professor Williams, David and his wife, my mentor from MIT's entrepreneurship program. Are you going to the wedding? James asked. I don't know, I said. Part of me wants to see if they'll notice if I don't show up. I went. I wore the expensive dress. I smiled in the family photos. I watched my parents cry tears of joy as Madison walked down the aisle. And when it was time for the father-daughter dance, I excused myself to the bathroom and cried silently in a stall. Not because I wasn't getting married. Because even there, surrounded by family, I was alone. James found me afterward. He didn't say anything, just held my hand. 6 months later he proposed. We were on a weekend trip to Martha's Vineyard, just the two of us. It was sunset and we were walking on the beach and he got down on one knee with a ring he'd designed himself. A simple platinum band with a blue sapphire, my favorite. Sarachan, he said, you're the most brilliant, strongest, most incredible person I've ever met. Will you marry me? I said yes before he even finished the question. That night I called my parents to tell them. That's nice, honey, Mom said. Listen, I'm actually on my way to help Madison pick out nursery furniture. Can I call you back? She didn't call back. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from tonight. James and I started planning our wedding. We weren't interested in something small and quiet. We wanted to celebrate with everyone who'd actually supported us. We wanted it to be spectacular. We booked the plaza for August 2022. We hired the best planners in New York. We created a guest list of 280 people. Our friends from MIT, our business partners, our employees, our mentors, Professor Williams, David and his entire family, James's huge extended family who'd welcomed me with open arms. The budget? $8.2 million. That wasn't a typo. $8.2 million. We flew in guests from 6 countries. We hired an orchestra. We had custom Vera Wang and Tom Ford designs. We served Kobe beef and Dom Perignon. We had ice sculptures, a 12-piece band, custom installations, fireworks over Central Park. Forbes heard about it. So did TechCrunch. Tech CEO's dream wedding became a trending topic. There were photographers, interviews, a behind-the-scenes documentary team. My parents weren't there. They weren't invited. Madison wasn't there. She wasn't invited. Not a single person from my biological family received an invitation. I didn't send a save the date. I didn't mention it in our occasional phone calls. I planned an $8.2 million wedding and I didn't tell them it was happening. When Mom called 2 weeks before the wedding to ask if I'd come to Madison's baby shower, I said, I can't, I'm busy that weekend. Doing what? She asked, annoyed. Just some work stuff, I said. The wedding was perfect. I walked down the aisle to Pachelbel's Canon, played by a 20-piece string orchestra. James cried when he saw me. Professor Williams gave a speech about watching me grow from a scared freshman to a CEO. David's toast included the story of our first sale, made from my dorm room. James's grandmother, who was 93, pulled me aside during the reception. I've been to a lot of weddings, dear, she said. This is the most beautiful I've ever seen. Your family must be so proud. My real family is here, I said, looking around at the room full of people who'd believed in me, invested in me, loved me. Every single person who matters is in this room. The photos were everywhere. Social media. Forbes. TechCrunch. The New York Times wedding section. TechFlow CEO Sarachan marries in Plaza Extravaganza. There were pictures of the dress, the cake, the first dance, the fireworks. My parents didn't see any of it. They didn't read tech news. They weren't on social media beyond Facebook, and I'd had them on restricted mode for years. 3 years passed. James and I bought a house in Westchester, ironically only 15 minutes from my parents' place. A $4.3 million estate with 8 bedrooms, a pool, and a guest house. We just closed on a second office in Austin. TechFlow was now valued at $127 million. I'd been featured in Forbes 30 Under 30 2 years earlier, and now they wanted to do a follow-up piece. Where are they now? The reporter, Michelle Santos, was thorough. He wanted to interview me, James, our employees, our early investors. She wanted the full story of how TechFlow grew from a dorm room project to a 9-figure company. We did the interview at our house. Michelle brought a photographer. We talked for 3 hours. About the early days, the challenges, the growth, the wedding that became famous in tech circles. That wedding, Michelle said, smiling. Everyone still talks about it. The plaza, the guest list, the budget. It was like a tech fairy tale. It was perfect, I said. Everyone who mattered was there. Your family must have been overwhelmed, she said. I paused. Then I told her the truth. The whole truth. The scapegoat daughter, the golden child sister, the parents who dismissed me for 28 years. The wedding they didn't know about because they weren't invited. Michelle's eyes widened. That's an incredible story. It's my story, I said. I'm not ashamed of it anymore. The Forbes article came out on a Tuesday in October 2025. TechFlow's Sarah Chen, building an empire after being the family disappointment. It went viral immediately. The wedding photos were republished. The story of my parents missing their daughter's $8.2 million wedding because they'd never bothered to notice her success. It resonated with thousands of people who'd felt dismissed by their own families. Hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to set boundaries with toxic family, because what happened next absolutely shattered their world. My mother found out at her book club. She went every Wednesday afternoon to her friend Karen's house. 8 Women Wine, usually a book nobody actually read. That Wednesday, Karen pulled up the Forbes article on her iPad. Patricia, I didn't know your daughter was a tech CEO. Karen said, look at this wedding. Plaza. 280 guests. According to Karen, who called me afterward to apologize, my mother's face went completely white. What are you talking about? Mom said. Karen showed her the article. The photos. Me in a custom Vera Wang gown. James and Tom Ford. The orchestra. The fireworks. The guest list that included venture capitalists, CEOs, and MIT professors. Mom grabbed the iPad. She scrolled through every photo, read every word. Her hands were shaking. This can't be real, she whispered. There are like 50 articles about it, Karen said. It was 3 years ago. How did you not know? Mom didn't answer. She grabbed her purse and left without another word. She called me from the car. I was in a meeting, so it went to voicemail. Sarah, call me back immediately. I just saw some article about you getting married. This has to be some kind of mistake. Call me. Then Dad called. Sarah, your mother is very upset. There's an article saying you got married 3 years ago and didn't tell us? That can't be true. Call us back. Then Madison called. What the fuck, Sarah? Mom is losing her mind. Did you actually get married and not invite us? I didn't call any of them back that day. Or the next day. I let them sit with it. On Friday they showed up at TechFlow's New York office. Our receptionist, Maya, called up to me. Sarah, there are 3 people here claiming to be your family. A Richard and Patricia Chen and a Madison Warren. Tell them I'm in meetings all day, I said. They're saying they're not leaving until they see you. I thought about it. Then I said, send them up. I had my assistant Tom bring them to our main conference room. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. A table that cost $50,000. Original artwork on the walls. Our company logo, the one I designed 7 years ago, etched into the glass. I made them wait 20 minutes. Not to be petty, because I actually was in a meeting. When I finished, I walked into the conference room in my Armani suit and Louboutin heels. They stared. Hello, I said calmly, taking a seat at the head of the table. I have 15 minutes. Mom found her voice first. Sarah, what is going on? We saw this article. The Forbes article, I said. Yes. It published on Tuesday. You got married? Dad said. 3 years ago? August 2022, I confirmed. Beautiful ceremony. 280 guests. The plaza. Madison's face was red. And you didn't invite your own family? I looked at her directly. I invited my family. Every single person who mattered to me was there. We're your family. Mom said, her voice rising. How could you not tell us? I opened my laptop. I'd prepared for this. I pulled up a folder and turned the screen toward them. This is a timeline, I said. Every major event in my life from age 14 to present. Let's go through it. I clicked to the first slide. Age 16, sold my first app for $12,000. You didn't know because you never asked what I was working on. Age 18, got into MIT on a full scholarship. You said, at least we won't have to pay for it. Age 22, graduated MIT. Founded TechFlow. Company valued at $2.3 million. You asked when I'd get a real job. Age 23, first major contract worth $500,000. You suggested I get my real estate license. Age 25, company valued at $47 million. Madison's wedding. I was a bridesmaid. You seated me at the table with the distant cousins you barely knew. Madison interrupted. That's because. I'm not done, I said quietly. Age 26, James proposed. I called to tell you. Mom said she'd call me back. She never did. Age 28, August 2022. Wedding at the plaza. $8.2 million. 280 guests. Forbes coverage. You didn't know because I didn't tell you. I closed the laptop. You want to know why I didn't invite you? Because for 28 years, you made it crystal clear that I didn't matter. That Madison was the important one. That I was convenient when you needed something but invisible when it came to celebration. That's not fair, Dad started. Here's what's fair, I said. I pulled out a folder from my briefcase. Inside were printed copies of text messages, emails, voicemails. All organized chronologically. I slid the first page across the table. December 2019. I texted you that TechFlow landed a Fortune 500 client. You responded, that's nice honey, and then asked if I could babysit Madison's kids that weekend. Another page. June 2020. I emailed about being featured in TechCrunch. You didn't respond at all. 2 days later, you sent a group text about Madison's new haircut with 15 photos. Another page. September 2021. I called to tell you I was buying a house. You interrupted to talk about Madison's kitchen renovation. I had 23 documented examples. Each one a moment where they dismissed my success or ignored my achievements. Mom was crying. We didn't know it was that serious. We thought you were just doing freelance work or something. You thought that because you never asked, I said. You never asked what TechFlow was. You never asked how many employees we had. You never asked what our revenue was. You just assumed I was failing because that fit your narrative better. This company, I gestured around us, has 67 employees. We did $43 million in revenue last year. We have offices in Boston, New York, San Francisco, and Austin. I personally am worth $82 million. And you didn't know any of that because you never cared enough to find out. The room was silent. Then Madison said, so what, you're just punishing us now? Being vindictive. I looked at her. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm simply living my life with people who actually value me. You're not entitled to be part of that just because we share DNA. We're your parents, Mom said desperately. We love you. You love the idea of me, I said. The version that's convenient for you. The family scapegoat you can feel superior to. But you don't love the real me. You never bothered to meet her. Dad finally spoke, his voice shaking. What do you want from us? Nothing, I said simply. I don't want anything from you. I don't need anything from you. That's the point you're missing. I'm not here asking for your approval or your acceptance. I'm here because you showed up at my office. I stood up. My assistant will see you out. Don't come back without an appointment. I walked toward the door, then paused. Oh, and if you're thinking about going to the press with your version of events, my lawyers are better than yours. Just a heads up. Tom escorted them out. Maya told me later that Mom was sobbing in the elevator. I went back to work. That evening my phone exploded. Text after text from extended family members, family friends, people I hadn't heard from in years. Aunt Linda. Sarah, I just saw the Forbes article. I had no idea. Congratulations on everything. Cousin Mike. Your wedding looked incredible. Sorry we didn't know about it. Old family friend Janet. Your parents are so proud of you. I didn't respond to any of them. They'd had years to reach out. They'd seen me at family gatherings where I was ignored or dismissed. None of them had said anything then. The real messages that mattered came from my chosen family. Professor Williams, saw your parents tried to visit. You okay? David, just say the word and I'll handle them. James, coming home early. Love you. The next morning I woke up to an email from my father. 5,000 words. Single-spaced. It was part apology, part justification, part desperate plea. The key parts. We see now that we made mistakes. We always loved you, we just didn't know how to show it. Madison needed more attention because she struggled with things you found easy. We're so proud of what you've accomplished. Please don't shut us out of your life. We want to be part of your future. At the bottom, can we meet for dinner and talk about this properly? I forwarded it to my therapist, Dr. Morrison. I'd started seeing her 2 years ago working through exactly this kind of family trauma. Her response, what do you want, Sarah? Not what they want. Not what you think you should want. What do you actually want? I sat with that question for 3 days. Here's what I realized. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want them to suffer. But I also didn't want them in my life pretending everything was fine. I wrote back to my father. Dad, thank you for your email. I understand you're processing a lot right now. Here's what I need you to understand. This isn't about one article or one wedding. This is about 28 years of being treated as secondary to Madison. Of having my achievements dismissed. Of being valued only for what I could do for the family, not for who I was. I'm not interested in having dinner and pretending everything is fine. I'm not interested in being pulled back into family dynamics where I'm the scapegoat and Madison is the golden child. If you genuinely want to repair this relationship, here's what needs to happen. Family therapy. All of us with a professional mediator. Minimum 6 months of regular sessions. Genuine accountability. Not we didn't know better. Real acknowledgement of specific actions and their impact. Changed behavior. Not promises. Actual sustained change over time. Boundaries that are respected without argument. If you're willing to do that work, I'm willing to consider it. If you're just looking for a quick fix so you don't look bad to your friends, then we're done here. Me know. Dad responded within an hour. We'll do whatever it takes. I didn't believe him. Not yet. But I was willing to see if he meant it. We started therapy in November. Dr. Morrison referred us to Dr. Patricia Gonzalez, a family therapist who specialized in narcissistic family dynamics and scapegoat recovery. The first session was brutal. Madison refused to come, claiming she had nothing to apologize for. Mom cried through the entire hour. Dad kept trying to explain and justify. Dr. Gonzalez shut it down. We're not here to justify. We're here to listen. Sarah, tell your parents how their actions made you feel. I did. For 90 minutes I walked through specific memories. Being excluded from family photos because I wasn't dressed nicely enough. Missing my college graduation dinner because Madison had a party. Being seated with strangers at Madison's wedding. Having my engagement dismissed. Mom kept saying, we didn't mean it like that. That doesn't matter, Dr. Gonzalez said. Impact matters more than intent. By session 4 we'd made a little progress. Dad acknowledged specific incidents. Mom admitted she'd favored Madison. They both said they were sorry. But Madison still refused to participate. He called me once angry. You're making Mom and Dad go to therapy, she said. They're devastated. This is so cruel. I'm giving them an opportunity they never gave me, I said. To be heard. To matter. To exist as more than a supporting character in your life. Everything isn't about you, Sarah. You're right, I said. That's exactly the problem. Nothing was ever about me. Until I made it about me. She hung up. 3 months into therapy something shifted. Mom stopped making excuses. Dad stopped trying to justify. They started actually listening. In one session Mom said something that cracked through all the walls. I was jealous of you, she said quietly. You were so smart, so capable. You didn't need us the way Madison did. I told myself we were being practical, focusing on the kid who needed more help. But really, I was scared of you. Scared you'd leave us behind. So you pushed me away first, I said. Yes, she whispered. And I'm so sorry. It wasn't enough. Not yet. But it was real. If you've ever had to walk away to save yourself, tell me your story in the comments. What would you have done? It's been 6 months since that Forbes article came out. 6 months of therapy, boundary setting, and careful, cautious progress. My relationship with my parents is different now. We have dinner once a month. They ask about TechFlow. They ask about James. They actually listen. They met James for the first time in January. He was skeptical, protective of me. But they showed up, were respectful, asked good questions. Madison and I don't speak. She sent one email after the therapy started. I can't believe you're holding our childhood over their heads like this. You were always so dramatic. I didn't respond. Dr. Gonzalez says I don't owe her a response. Some bridges burn for good reason. But here's the thing. I'm not doing this for them. I'm doing this for me. To see if repair is possible. To try one last time to have the family I always wanted. But I'm also prepared to walk away if it doesn't work. Because I learned the most important lesson 3 years ago when I walked down that aisle at the plaza. Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up. Who believes in you. Who celebrates your success instead of dismissing it. My real family was at that wedding. Every single person who mattered was in that room. And if my parents can't be part of my real family, the one built on respect, support, and genuine love, then they can stay in the past where they belong. I'm worth $82 million. I run a company that's changing how creative agencies work. I'm married to a man who thinks I hung the moon. I'm surrounded by people who've supported me from the beginning. I don't need my parents' validation anymore. But I'm willing to see if they can earn a place in my life. That's not weakness. That's the power of deciding what you deserve. And I deserve everything I've built.